Imagine waking up in June to blood-red snow falling from the sky, the sun, a pale ghost behind a veil of darkness that never lifts, crops rotting in frozen fields, horses dropping dead in the streets, and across the entire planet, millions of people slowly starving to death with no idea why. This is not fiction. This happened, and it all started with one mountain that decided to scream. This is Clusterstory, where we take a deep dive into history to get a great understanding of how we got here. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell, like and share this video. The sleeping giant awakens. For centuries, Mount Tambora slept quietly on the island of Sumbawa in the Indonesian archipelago. The local people farmed its fertile slopes, built their villages in its shadow, and lived their lives unaware they were dancing on the edge of the apocalypse. Deep beneath the mountain, pressure had been building for thousands of years. Molten rock churned and boiled, pushing against the Earth's crust like a beast trying to break free from its cage. By early 1815, the mountain began to rumble. Small eruptions sent columns of ash into the sky. The locals grew nervous, but no one could have predicted what was coming. Then, on the evening of April 5th, 1815, Mount Tambora did not simply erupt. It detonated. The explosion was heard over 1,200 miles away. People in Sumatra thought cannons were firing. British soldiers in Java prepared for battle against an enemy that did not exist. The sound traveled so far that ships at sea changed course, searching for a battle that was never fought. But this was only the beginning. When hell broke loose 5 days later, on April 10th, Tambora unleashed its full fury. The eruption column shot 43 kilometers into the atmosphere, punching through the stratosphere like a fist through paper. The mountain literally blew itself apart. In that single cataclysmic event, Mount Tambora ejected approximately 150 cubic kilometers of rock, ash, and debris into the sky. To put that in perspective, the famous eruption of Krakatoa in 1883, which people still talk about today, released only about 25 cubic kilometers. Tambora was 6 times more powerful. The immediate devastation was beyond comprehension. Pyroclastic flows, superheated clouds of gas and rock traveling at hundreds of miles per hour raced down the mountainside. Everything in their path was incinerated instantly. The kingdom of Tambora, a thriving civilization that had existed for centuries, was erased from existence in a matter of hours. An estimated 12,000 people died in the first moments of the eruption, but the death toll was only beginning. The ashfall was so thick that day became night. For 3 days, complete darkness engulfed the region for 300 miles in every direction. People could not see their hands in front of their faces. Roofs collapsed under the weight of accumulated ash. Crops were buried. Water sources were poisoned. In the weeks that followed, an additional 80,000 people died from starvation and disease on the surrounding islands. Entire communities simply ceased to exist. Yet the true horror of Tambora was not the immediate devastation. It was what happened next, the invisible enemy. When Tambora exploded, it did not just throw rock and ash into the sky. It injected approximately 60 megatons of sulfur dioxide directly into the stratosphere. This invisible poison would circle the globe, transforming into sulfuric acid aerosols that formed a deadly veil around the entire planet. These microscopic particles reflected sunlight back into space before it could reach the Earth's surface. The planet began to cool, and nobody knew why. By the summer of 1815, strange phenomena were being reported across the world. Brilliant blood-red sunsets painted the skies of Europe and North America. The sun appeared dim and strange, sometimes visible only as a pale disk that could be stared at directly without hurting the eyes. Artists were captivated. J.M.W. Turner painted some of his most famous sunset scenes during this period, unknowingly documenting the atmospheric effects of a volcano half a world away. The skies were beautiful, but beauty in this case was a warning sign of catastrophe. As 1815 drew to a close, temperatures continued to drop. The world was entering a nightmare from which it would not easily awaken. The year without summer 1816 arrived, and with it came the full force of Tambora's wrath. Global temperatures dropped by an average of 0.4 to 0.7 degrees Celsius. That might sound insignificant, but in climate terms, it was catastrophic. In New England, frost struck every month of the year. Snow fell in June. Lakes and rivers froze in July. Farmers watched in horror as their crops died in the fields, killed by cold that should have been impossible. They called it 1800 and froze to death. Europe fared even worse. The previous years had been brutal, with the Napoleonic Wars devastating the continent. People were already weakened, already hungry. Now the crops failed completely. In Ireland, relentless cold rain destroyed the potato and oat harvests. Famine swept across the land. In Wales, families wandered the countryside begging for food. In Switzerland, the situation became so desperate that the government declared a national emergency. Germany experienced widespread crop failure. Bread prices soared to levels that working families simply could not afford. Food riots erupted in cities and towns. People attacked grain stores and bakeries, driven to violence by hunger. France, still recovering from revolution and war, saw its harvests decimated. The price of wheat doubled, then tripled. In some regions, people ate grass, roots, and even clay in a desperate attempt to fill their empty stomachs. A world in darkness, the effects of Tambora reached far beyond the Western world. In China, the Yunnan province experienced catastrophic crop failures. Rice paddies stood empty. Famine killed tens of thousands. In India, the disrupted monsoon patterns triggered a series of disasters that would echo for years. The failed harvests weakened populations, making them vulnerable to disease. And disease came with a vengeance. The Bengal region saw the emergence of a new, more virulent strain of cholera. Weakened by hunger, people fell to the disease in staggering numbers. This epidemic did not stay contained. It spread along trade routes, eventually reaching Europe and beyond in the first great cholera pandemic of the 19th century. Historians estimate that the death toll from Tambora's aftermath may have exceeded 200,000 people. Some suggest the true number was far higher, lost to the fog of history and the chaos of a world thrown into disorder. Monsters born from darkness, yet from this darkness came something unexpected: creation. In the summer of 1816, a group of young English writers gathered at the Villa Diodati near Lake Geneva in Switzerland. The weather was miserable. Cold rain fell endlessly. The skies were gray and threatening. They could not go outside. Trapped indoors, they challenged each other to write ghost stories. Among them was an 18-year-old woman named Mary Godwin, who would later become Mary Shelley. During those dark, storm-swept nights, she conceived of a tale about a scientist who creates life from death, a monster assembled from corpses and brought to existence through lightning. She called her creation Frankenstein. Without Tambora, without the year without summer, one of the most influential novels in literary history might never have been written. In that same villa, Lord Byron wrote a poem called Darkness, describing a dying sun and a world frozen and dead. The imagery was not entirely fiction. It was inspired by what he saw outside his window. A world that seemed to be ending unexpected innovations. Necessity, they say, is the mother of invention, and the year without summer proved this in remarkable ways. Across Europe, the failure of oat harvests meant there was no food for horses. Without horses, transportation ground to a halt. A German inventor named Karl Dreis, faced with this crisis, developed a new form of personal transportation. He called it the running machine. We call it the bicycle. The mass migration caused by famine also reshaped nations. Thousands of Europeans, desperate to escape the hunger and cold, packed their belongings and sailed for America. This wave of immigration would help build the United States into the nation it would become. Legacy of fire. Mount Tambora's eruption remains the largest and most devastating volcanic event in recorded human history. Its effects rippled across the globe, touching every continent, every nation, every life. The year without summer revealed just how fragile our civilization truly is. We build our cities, plant our crops, and construct our societies, assuming the climate will cooperate. But the Earth operates on timescales we barely comprehend, with forces we cannot control. Tambora taught us that a single event in a single location can reshape the entire world. It taught us that nature does not negotiate. It it does not care about our plans or our schedules. When the Earth decides to move, we can only respond. Today, scientists monitor volcanoes around the world, watching for signs of the next great eruption. Supervolcanoes like Yellowstone could dwarf even Tambora's fury. The question is not if such an eruption will happen, but when. The mountain that stole the summer still stands in Indonesia, though much reduced from its former height. The crater left behind measures 6 kilometers across, a scar on the landscape marking where an apocalypse was born. And in the end, perhaps that is Tambora's greatest lesson. Our planet is alive, restless, and ultimately beyond our control. The same forces that created this beautiful world can, in an instant, transform it into something unrecognizable. The year without summer was not ancient history. It was barely 2 centuries ago, and somewhere beneath the surface of our planet, the next Tambora may already be waking up. If this story gave you chills, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because here at Clusterstory, we uncover the moments that shaped our world in ways you never imagined. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and we will see you in the next video.